Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about work in consciousness. Work in consciousness is a phrase that appears more than 180 times in channeling transcripts and generally refers to work done in your indigo ray center, also known as your third eye chakra. The entity known as Quo has noted that work in consciousness is by far the hardest work that one can do in this incarnation, yet it is also the most effective way to accelerate one's spiritual evolution. So what is work in consciousness and how can it help us accelerate our spiritual evolution? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join us. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week to let you know what we'll be talking about that week, as well as the Zoom links. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Tricia Bean from the L&L Research channeling team. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's episode is about work in consciousness. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley, calling from New Jersey.
Nice. And Josh?
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm also calling from New Jersey. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Nice. So happy to have you both here. Really looking forward to this conversation. Did want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts on the law of one or work in consciousness. We are just normal people like you, hanging out as friends, talking about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything we say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the law of one and the entity known as Quo, you might want to go ahead and skip ahead to the chapter on what is work in consciousness. Otherwise, for those who are new to the law of one, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. More or less everything else that we read today could be considered a variation of that statement. All the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. Basically, the channel serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if they're asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're speaking. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're speaking. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo back in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of reality or different levels of consciousness, since those two things are so closely interrelated. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have said they do for centuries. We call that first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals, clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we regard as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans or cetaceans like whales or dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of a social memory complex. Again, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind or group consciousness. Clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fifth density. There is obviously more to be said than that, but for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latwii at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact was made with Quo by the L&L research channeling team back in '96. Almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then, up to the present day, by the L&L research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those channeling sessions at the L&L Conscious Channeling Library, shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a couple passages on what is work in consciousness. On November 18th, 1990, Quo said, "The hardest work that you can do within this incarnation is work in consciousness. Yet this work in consciousness is by far the most effectual means of accelerating in any spiritual evolution, innovating, enlightening the consciousness of your sphere. When you have no solemnity, no love that many enjoy, and so shall you, each of you, as you find you truly are a person to be esteemed, a person who has gifts, and whose only desire is to offer them to the Creator. Is this not a beautiful thing? Can you not step back and see the courage involved in having faith where there is no evidence to support it, nor can there ever be? For this is the density of choice, blind choice. You work in the dark, you suffer, and then discover the suffering, accept it, grasp its nature, and eventually reprogram it over and over and over again, moving away from the suffering and towards mindfulness, not because you have behaved differently, but because you have told your mind to register different portions of the catalyst." So much to unpack in this passage. I'm going to go straight to the panel. Ashley, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I have to agree with you. This is very dense with keys and explanations for our journey being here. I guess I'll start for the first portion that was highlighted, where the work in consciousness, that can be different things for different people. Like for me, the work in consciousness, a part of that is meditation. A part of that is like going into the silence and stripping away all of the stimulus that we get from our everyday life and just sitting with the eternal present moment. For me, work in consciousness is a stripping away and a falling away into something greater. And then what Quo's saying here is very beautiful. I mean, it doesn't feel beautiful when you're going through it, but we're here experiencing Catalyst. We're rising and falling. We're making mistakes. We're suffering. But Quo is giving us a light of hope here to show that everything that we are experiencing is for a purpose, and it is a positive purpose. Because in an ideal situation, we're moving away from suffering, as they said, and towards mindfulness. And that mindfulness comes through the working consciousness, and it leads to understanding of the self, understanding of other self, and reality. So it's just kind of hopeful. Like everything we experience is for a reason.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've always appreciated about Confederation channeling sessions. They always leave me feeling hopeful. I've never read anything there that like inspired me with fear or made me concerned or angry or anything. It seems very inspiring.
Mhm.
Josh, any thoughts, reflections to add?
Yeah, um, I like everything you said, Ashley, and some things came to mind in work. What is work and consciousness is the way one interpretation I have is seeing it as changing the way you react and perceive different situations and catalysts around you instead of kind of reacting involuntarily or reflex with your reflex. You to have a more mindful, conscious way to process it first, to think about it first, contemplate it first, and see maybe, you know, what deeper lesson is here? How can I perceive this in a light that aids me down my path of service to others, assuming you've chosen that path? Like they said, third density, density of choice. You're here to make that choice. And then I see work as consciousness. There's a lot of work in consciousness to do after you've made the choice, is to see things and process things and respond to things or catalysts in the direction of that choice.
Indeed.
Um,
Yeah, I really appreciate that both of you were kind of keying in on that last part in the second paragraph, because that really stuck out to me too. The idea of mindfulness, paying attention to how your thoughts are working, and figuring out a way to respond differently to triggering events, for example, because as they say at the very end, you have told your mind to register different portions of catalysts. It reminds me, of course, of the archetype of the mind, where catalyst of the mind is one of the key archetypes to the whole mind. And yeah, this idea that somehow if you can pay attention to your thoughts enough to change the way you think, rewire the biocomputer, as they might say, reprogram the biocomputer. Yeah, there's definitely magic. There's powerful in changing that consciousness at will. Anything else that you saw here that you wanted to comment on, Ashley?
I like that faith was brought up. Um, see the courage involved in having faith. That is also an aspect I feel of working in consciousness, is the cultivation of faith, because there is a point where intellect and maybe logic and maybe what your reality is showing you will not reflect that which you're trying to achieve or seek. So in those moments, faith is what will carry you through. It will, yeah.
I have a question for you, and maybe for both of you. Do you think that what you were just saying about faith is why Quo said in the very first paragraph at the top, first sentence, that the hardest work you can do in this incarnation is work in consciousness? Because it relies so much on things that you cannot see. Do you think that's it, or do you think they're talking about other things?
I would agree with you. It Faith is definitely one of the hardest things, as so it could be synonymous with the work in consciousness, the embodiment of that, because everything around us is so sensory intensive. Everything's in our faces. We have solidity, the illusion of solidity. And when you do work in consciousness, there is an aspect of dabbling in the intangible, dabbling in what is unmanifested, the things inside of you that you can't just pick out with a spoon and put on the table. So faith,
Right.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me also of balancing energy centers. I think, as we'll see, I think later on in some passages, I think a lot of work in consciousness is about clearing your energy centers so that prana can flow upward into your open heart and so on. And I know for me, keeping an open heart and keeping unblocked energy centers is definitely a huge challenge for me. Did you have any thoughts on anything there, Josh? Why do you think work in consciousness is the hardest work we can do in incarnation?
yeah, yeah, I like everything you guys said. see it also in another way of maybe what they might mean is it's hardest work you could do because it's like overcoming your own nature. And like if you're just born and just go about and react to life and you're not privy to, higher spiritual work and mindfulness, and you're not trying to evolve metaphysically or spiritually, it's very hard to start and to change that way. I saw it almost as like, how easy is it to just rewire your brain and override some like neural pathways of instinctual response that we're so used to making over and over and over again. And we got to train ourselves to be like, nope, don't do the old habit, right? Do
And
things.
that's got to be one of the hardest things that you can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all really valid ways to look at it, and who knows, maybe that's all of those things they meant that. I did want to move ahead to a couple other passages. Did you guys have anything you wanted to talk about, add to thoughts on this passage on screen? Sounds good.
Last thing I would say is just that there's a discipline aspect, almost like a monk-like discipline, that is not easy and it takes a lot of practice and repetitions. That is a great work. That's all.
Yeah, I do believe work and consciousness and what they call discipline of the personality are indeed very closely related. And I think we're going to see that later on here. And I believe discipline of the personality is the next podcast episode we got lined up. So on the same wavelength for sure. Let's take a look at a couple other passages. On April 19th, 2009, Quo said, "In your beingness, be aware that you are allowing the light of the Creator to shine through you. You are holding up to that light any gifts that you may perceive that you have, and asking that the light may shine through them, that your personality may be transparent to that light, so that there is no soil of self obstructing your gifts. This is your gift to the world as well as your gift to yourself. At the level of work and consciousness, the two are congruent. If you have created less distortion in your own balance, you have created less distortion in the planetary balance. If you have found ways to get out of your own way and become an instrument tuned to the wind of spirit, you have tuned the planet to the wind of spirit, and it shall sing a cleaner and clearer, more beautiful song because of your work." The difficulty in and on May 10th, 1987, Quo said, "The difficulty in recognizing one's true work seems to stem from that distorted value which your peoples place upon that tool of power, which your peoples call the money." I like how they put the in front of it, the money. "It is our opinion that the only work which may be called the work of any entity is that work done in consciousness during an incarnational period, which has a net result as judged by the self after the incarnation of polarizing the entity more and more strongly towards the service to the Creator and to others. Thus, life is the work, and the work is the life." Again, so much to unpack in both of these passages. I think that first one, what really grabbed me is this idea that if you change your consciousness, you change the consciousness of the planet. If you heal yourself, you're healing the planet. That's a really beautiful, empowering thing, and I think super encouraging, especially in these times of apparent distress. Josh, did you have any thoughts on either of these passages?
Sure. Yeah, I really like them. They're definitely touching on, I think, two different aspects of working consciousness. Like you said, the changing yourself is changing the planet. And as, I don't know if this is going too far off topic, but as wanderers incarnating here to change the planet, to, increase the harvest and raise the vibration, raise the consciousness. So it's, certainly reassuring that just by doing it in yourself and doing your own work and consciousness, your own discipline, and your own personality, you're helping the whole planet.
Sure.
And touching other people to maybe follow suit or be inspiration. And I really like the last bit of the last paragraph, reinforcing that thing where throughout my day to day, certainly can lose sight of what it all boils down to, right? You could say that after the incarnation, you, they say, judged by the self, life review, they call it, right? And to see, how much, if being alive is, going to school for a day, and you come home and you say, what'd you learn at school today? And you're like, nothing, we just messed around, versus, oh, well, I changed my, behaviors and habits to more towards service to others, and, did some work in consciousness. They're like, oh, good, you get a sticker,
A metaphysical sticker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing when you think about that. And no, that's not the least bit off topic for sure. I would assume many people watching this are wanderers, and that I think he spoke well to the reason that so many of us came here to this planet. Anything to add, Ashley?
In resonance with everything you said, Josh, and I would just add that for me, the work in consciousness is, there's always been an intensity point when I focus more on being that mirror or reflection that the creator can shine through. Like, there's a part of me that understands that that which is within me, intelligent infinity, that portion of awareness, has a far greater knowledge of where I should be and what I should be doing to live my highest purpose at every given moment. So it's allowing the creator to shine through. And I feel like that's a key.
For sure. Yeah, and it's just really funny what they're saying in the second paragraph, that, I mean, we get so hung up on the work that we have to do to pay the bills or get a decent health care or whatever. But yeah, they're saying that's not really the work he came here to do. The work he came here to do is what you're just saying, Ashley. And I just think it's funny how easy it is to forget that, and how hard it is to remember and really remember that there's more to life than slaving away, as so many of us do. Did anybody have anything to add before we change topics and look at another passage?
I do feel like that is the point, to, for a while, be lost in the sauce of working for the money and not having the time and awareness. And then this tension builds, and then you, before you know it, you've been thrust on a journey of seeking because of your disillusionment with the illusion. So it has a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and as our friends in the Confederation have said so many times, this planet really kind of has an inherent bias towards service to self, or at least appears that way, which is why if you can just be 51% service to others, if you can think about others just a tiny little bit more than yourself, that's good enough. You can go on to the next level. Yeah. We shall see. I guess we're here to learn and help. Shall we go ahead and take a look at another passage? Let's take a look at a passage on something we have already alluded to today, and that is polarity. On August 2nd, 1988, Quo said, "The endeavor of the seeker of truth is that which increases the polarity or the ability of that entity to welcome and enjoy the love and light which is a power of the one creator. Just as your battery within your automobile is able to function because of the potential difference between the positive and the negative charge, so is the seeker of truth able to do work in consciousness according to its ability to polarize itself in the positive or service to others fashion in an effective manner. When this has been accomplished to a significant enough degree, that polarization is as a light and a source of energy or power which might be utilized by that seeker for further service to others and further journeying upon the path of service to others itself." I really love the visuals in that first paragraph about the battery. I think that's a really great way to imagine the difference between the positive and the negative poles. And as our friends in the Confederation have said many times, service to others path is no better than service to self path. They are equally valid in the eyes of the Creator. But the whole point of third density is to make a choice between one of those two and then try to polarize enough on the positive or negative path to be able to move on to the next level. Did you have any thoughts on anything here, Ashley?
I like that the passage calls to mind that that we are here to make a choice. It's not just random, and we're not just here wasting away going through the motions. And also what you mentioned about both paths being valid, which for some can be a way to not have so much against the STS, because you will start to understand that, oh, they also have a right to express as they want to too, just like I am. So that can be very helpful to keep your focus on not just worrying about the STS or trying to force them to become STO. I also like the oh, hold on.
You're good.
You can hear me?
Yep, sounds good. Whoop, nope, just lost Ashley. We will see if she can reconnect. Josh, did you have any thoughts on anything in the passage or anything Ashley was saying?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one hard to verbalized concept came to me when reading this. I took electronics and familiar with the battery and the positive, negative, and when they say potential difference is like trying to come up with a good way to verbalize it, like I said. But let's say you have like a whole bunch of people in a room and there's just a whole bunch of things. And when you're in the crowd or you're in the mess, you're just one of everything else, and there's no you don't see the polarities. It's just the positive and the negative have merged, and there's no potential difference. Everyone's on the same plane. But once the polarizing, right? Just as you begin to polarize, and you come positive or negative, and you start to separate from what your prior perspective, you then see, okay, now I'm positively polarized. I see all this cycle of indifference that I could, opportunities for service, where before it wasn't seen as an opportunity for service.
Right,
Everything was gray. I
right,
turned black or white, and now I see the gray as, oh, well, I could help it become black or white, in a
right.
sense. Yeah.
Right. We usually think of polarization as a negative thing, as if, our country is so polarized right now. It's such a bad thing. But in many ways, as you said, I think it's indicative of graduation harvest time. And that more intense polarization is making it easier for people to make a choice between one or the other. And it's easy to assume that negative is evil or bad because they are literally the polar opposite of the positive path. But again, you wouldn't say that the negative path is any worse than the positive path any more than you would say the negative pole of a battery is worse than the positive pole. The stronger the negative pole, the stronger it makes the positive pole, I think. Ashley, any thoughts on anything there?
No, I'm in resonance with everything you've said, you and Josh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful passage, and it is a great reminder of what we all came here to do, wanderers or not, to polarize as much as we can. Well, and to make the choice, I think that's kind of the main reason the Earth is as confused as it is. The vast majority of the population has no idea that there's a choice. They just think, like Ashley said, life is just a random thing. You just happen to be here because some sperm and egg joined together, and the rest was random stuff. Anyone have any other thoughts to add before we take a look at another few passages on a different subject? Cool. Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on, again, something we have alluded to already, and that is energy centers, also known as chakras. For viewers who didn't know, chakra is a Sanskrit term that goes back to Hindu traditions. It means wheel. And what is referred to as chakras in Hindu traditions, they more or less refer to in the Law of One as more or less the same thing, but they call them energy centers or energy rays. So in both Hinduism and the Law of One, it is understood that prana or life force or intelligent energy or love light, as they call it in the Law of One, this cosmic life force flows from the creator through stars, through our planet Earth, and up from planet Earth into our energy centers, starting with red ray or the root chakra, which deals with survival, sexual reproduction, fundamental vitality, receives intelligent energy from the earth. From there, it goes up to the orange ray or sacral chakra, which deals with personal identity, relationships with other individual selves. From there, it goes up to the yellow ray or solar plexus chakra, which deals with group identity or relationships with groups of other selves. From there, goes to the green ray or the heart chakra, which deals with universal unconditional love and serves as a springboard to higher chakras and to intelligent infinity. Going upwards into the blue ray or throat chakra, which deals with wisdom, light, honesty, clarity, and inspiration, communication to others, your entirety of beingness. From there goes to your indigo ray or third eye chakra, regarded as the gateway to intelligent infinity in the Law of One. It's the center of the adept of magical workings and of work in consciousness. Energy then goes out through your violet ray or crown chakra out to the rest of the world and universe. It is kind of your vibratory essence. It's the sum energetic signature of yourself, reflecting your overall balance. There is some correlation between densities and chakras, since, as we said, your fourth chakra would be the heart chakra or the green ray, which is about unconditional love, which kind of correlates with fourth density, being the density of love and understanding. Your fifth chakra being the throat chakra or the blue ray chakra correlates with fifth density being about wisdom. And in sixth density, it's about unity, it's about infinity, it's about oneness. So you can think of some correlation between chakras and energy centers or densities. Having said that, let's take a look at a passage from October 5th, 2003. Quo said, "The ability to do work in consciousness is momentary, and there can be times of brilliance and clarity for any soul who is able even momentarily to enter the heart. It is to be noted, however, that the more work that is done in the first three energy centers, and that on a daily basis, the more opportunity that a soul may have to rest within the open heart. Once one is relatively balanced within the energy body from red, orange, and yellow, then the heart is able to get full energy and that full blast of unconditional love that the Creator pulls out in infinite quantity and quality at all times. Energy is finally able to move through into the heart in a powerful way. Many who attempt to do work in consciousness are working on that green ray, working to get the heart to open without taking the tedious and often unrewarding time to enter into the self in an ever deeper way, making connections that explain patterns that are long-standing and gradually finding ways to remove the triggers that are hidden within everyday experiences and processes." Super fascinating passage, and I definitely resonate with what they're saying about green ray and trying to keep the heart open. Josh, did you have any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Still processing that one. I'll pass it to Ashley. She can go before me.
Sounds good. Ashley?
Well, I like the idea that the quo is reminding us that giving us kind of a hint that the work to opening the heart isn't necessarily starting from these highly metaphysical energy centers, like going straight to indigo. It's working with our earth-based energy centers that really get activated in our everyday lives. I like the part you highlighted, which is the finding ways to remove the triggers that are hidden within everyday experiences and processes. And for me, I get a window into how my red, orange, and yellow ray are doing by how I react to people I don't know yet, you know, see on the street, those your coworkers, your friends, your family, loved ones. These everything in 3D shows us where we can work on and where we need to work on those energy centers. And it's a beautiful thing that in living our everyday lives, that is the arena whereby we can open the green ray.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and I think we've kind of alluded to that before, the importance of keeping your energy centers unblocked. And yeah, I appreciate what Quo was saying to the effect that a lot of folks want to do work in the upper chakras, green, blue, indigo, and so on, but kind of neglect to take care of the lower centers, the red, the orange, and the yellow, especially involving relationships with others. And yeah, if you have issues with any of those lower energy centers, then it really blocks that flow of the infinite love of the creator to be able to get into the heart and to be able to go beyond. So yeah, it's a good reminder. And I think maybe that's why I was thinking, yes, this is probably the hardest work I have to do in this incarnation of trying to keep my energy centers open and keep my heart open as much as possible. It's definitely, I find that challenging. Any thoughts, Josh, on anything here?
I would say it's interesting to imagine. I can't say that I've had the experience where I've fully cleared my lower three energy centers and feel this full blast of unconditional love of the creator. But I think dealing with the, you know, out of balances or blockages, and it's kind of like that rewiring of dealing with other selves or groups of other selves, and you have a habit of maybe being shy or yelling or, being, whatever the trait may be. Is an area for that work in consciousness to be done to clear the red, orange, and yellow. And then, it just keeps going. Basically, every energy center that you activate and open, I think triggers more opportunities for work and consciousness to be done on those higher traits or properties or that come
For sure.
about. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I know the few times that I felt like I have kind of gotten glimpses of having everything open and experiencing what felt like pretty full unconditional love was, yeah, a very emotional time. Usually get pretty teary, often with gratitude and love and just kind of bathing in that moment. But yeah, those moments pass. and then reality comes crashing in again and I have to like deal with that stuff again. But I guess like anything else, the more you practice it and the more you try it, the easier it gets. And I certainly find reading these passages to be helpful in helping me get to that place again. Did you guys have anything to add before we take a look at some other passages? Let's go ahead and take a look at a few passages specifically on indigo ray or third eye chakra. Did want to note, sorry for our panel, for our viewers, we did actually do a podcast episode on chakras and energy centers. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about that, we obviously went more in depth into each of those energy centers. Otherwise, let's go ahead and take a look at a few passages focusing on indigo ray or third eye chakra. On January 14th, 2023, Quo said, "For it is that indigo ray or pineal chakra that has the ability to do work in consciousness that is of a very helpful nature, not only to the entity activating that chakra, but to those about it that are able to feel the less distorted cosmic flow of energies that may be expressed through the indigo ray chakra." And on November 6, 2005, Quo said, "As far as we know, it is not possible intellectually to conceive of infinity. It is, however, possible to experience the infinite. The infinite is that world in which you exist without masks. You have journeyed to the world of finity in order to do work in consciousness that must be done without recourse to that point of view that is full of love, wisdom, and knowledge. So we would say to you, my brother, that the value of the infinite can only be known by you in experiencing the infinite directly. That is what work in consciousness concerns itself with. And in the Ra contact in session 7, question 12, Ra said, when your peoples grasp infinity, then and only then can the gateway be opened to the law of one. Really fascinating, these three passages together, and I think they just speak to the idea of, yeah, experiencing infinity through your third ray chakra. They called it the pineal chakra because it refers to the pineal gland, which is a small pea-sized gland that's like in the middle of your brain that apparently has light-sensitive cells that are connected to your retina. So it is often referred to as your third eye, kind of going along with the third eye chakra. Any thoughts on anything here, Ashley?
I just think it's amazing how they express these concepts. Just having a moment of marvel. Now, now personally, I do a lot of work with the Indigo Ray Energy Center, and I really like that they honed in on the idea of experiencing it directly, because we do have a lot of metaphysical books that share all kinds of information about indigo ray expressions and what you might come across while exploring indigo ray. But I feel that until you sit in meditation for yourself and do that internal seeking or opening to intelligent infinity, you won't really have that personal experience that will allow you to continue to seek and allow you to cultivate faith. But once you get a taste of that through meditation, through openness, then it changes everything. It becomes real for you. And the last part that I found was interesting is when Quo mentions that you activating your indigo ray is also beneficial to those around you that are able to feel the less distorted cosmic inflow of energies.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where one thing I was going to mention is right on that point, Ashley, is what comes to mind is enlightened saints and ascended masters and Jesus and Buddha who were cleared and open and flowing the infinite energy through them, radiated this love and light, aura, halo, that was felt by those around them, I think are, um, good examples, peak examples
Those are
of
great
that.
examples. Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and anyone can, like they all said, anyone can become that way. We all have the ability. It's just a matter, like they said, of activating and blocking and clearing blockages and activating and letting it flow. And I think working consciousness is what would lead there, right? It's part of
For
that.
sure. Yeah, and meditation certainly would be the recommended way, I would assume, from our friends in the Confederation. I would imagine that's why a lot of people do ayahuasca, to be able to experience that with the help of a chemical aid. It seems that I've never done it and I have not felt any particular desire to do it, but have either of you done ayahuasca, and did it feel like an experience of infinity?
I had an ayahuasca ceremony before. Um, I was already metaphysically involved prior, so it wasn't a life-changing event, but it was very intense in experiencing in a more concentrated way the connection and interconnection of our own beingness with infinity. So I guess it would depend on the individual. For some, they can achieve this through years of meditation, which is how I did. but then some may have that one moment experience with a plant, a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. Like I said, it's not experience I have sought for or felt called to, but yeah, as our friends in Confederation have said, every soul is unique, every spiritual journey is unique, and they would never prescribe that one way is the only way or one way is a forbidden way or anything like that. I had another passage wanted to look at. Did you guys have anything to add on this before we change, Josh?
Yeah, there is one thing I do wanted to mention that I do really like that last one, 712. When your peoples grasp infinity, then the gateway could be open. So I've said this multiple times and before in these groups of like when you grasp infinity, you could tell anybody, yeah, infinity exists. And they're like, okay, a really big number, big whoop, right? But then for someone who has some of this experience or a further experience or concept of that, what that means, it's so much more significant and profound and life-changing to, another person compared to another person. There's an example I just said before. It's like seeing a puddle on the road in like a pothole or something, and you're standing down the street and you see a little puddle. You don't, at a pothole, you don't know if that's 2 inches deep or 2 miles deep, right? Because infinity, someone
If
could
it's in
grasp
Washington, it's probably 2 miles deep.
it.
Just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's that surface level thing where you could say, oh yeah, infinity exists, and they're like, okay, big whoop. Or another person can say infinity exists, and you're like, oh my God, right? Like
Right.
that.
Yeah, I think it was another passage where they said intellectually you can never understand what infinity is because the best you can think of is something that's really, really big but finite. And then just say, well, infinity is bigger than that. And then whatever that is, infinity is bigger than that. So, yeah, it's funny that they'll say that your mind is incapable of comprehending infinity. And then they say, only when your peoples grasp infinity can the gateway be open to the law of one. So I think they're saying we're screwed. We'll never understand it. I don't know. Any other thoughts to share on these entertaining passages before we look at something else? Nice. I do appreciate how I think it is in the raw contact where they have said many times that the purpose, as it would be for whatever contacts or visitations they've made, whether appearance in our skies as the thought forms of UFOs or appearances in dreams or otherwise, is really to inspire people with that sense of mystery, that sense of infinity, that sense of, oh, wow, there's a lot more to reality than I thought. Much appreciated that. Let's take a look at another passage. This one is from May 12th, 1996, and Quo said, what we are attempting to communicate is that third density is not the place from which to take off into the ethers. Rather, it is the place to refine your basic choice of paths, service to self or service to others. This seems a simple and basic choice, one easily taken and out of the way, clearing the way for important work. Yet this is the chief work of your incarnation, the purification of that choice for the light. Into that light, you will take your entire universal, as this instrument likes to say, 360-degree self. You shall not be judged on the contents of your heart, for all have light and dark within. You shall be judged by the self on your capacity to accept an increase of light. Those who truly think of others first are automatically increasing their ability to withstand the more dense light of the next density. Therefore, wanderers, just like those native to this third density, need to see the chief importance of making and remaking this choice. It is not made once for all. It is made again and again and again. Temptation to shut down that open heart, to go away from the light, comes every day you dwell within your illusion, so that you can go through this process of refinement, which has many temptations and tests. For those who are relatively new to the Law of One, we've used the word wanderers before quite a few times. And wanderers in the Law of One refers to souls that already graduated from third density and have moved on to fourth or fifth or sixth density, but have volunteered to come back to a lower density, possibly on another planet, third density, in order to help with spiritual growth, to help the planet in its adjustment from third to fourth density, or help individuals to grow and be able to make that leap. And it's a beautiful thing. Do you have any thoughts, Josh, on anything here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there, but the first thing that comes to mind is in the last bit, the temptation to shut down the open heart and go away comes every day. And so you can go through it. It's like people see, I mean, I guess me on the spiritual path of consciously, desirous to study more and practice more and become more pure and spiritual and all that good stuff. It's like typically you'll see like, most of the culture and media and entertainment and marketing is like traps or things that take stray you off your path of spiritual kind of refinement, but seeing it like as something to avoid and be weary of getting entangled, right? Getting knocked off the path, and but to see that as a gift, it's a great gift to have that, if because then that offers you the service and opportunity to come back to the path, to reaffirm, reestablish, repractice, making that switch, that change, you know, uh, to see that polarity, right? Because if we don't have the good, if we don't have the bad, then there is no good. So if you don't have the temptation, you don't have the thing you're striving toward, because it's all just
Right,
whatever, you know?
right.
So that came to mind.
Yeah, interesting. I think everything you said makes perfect sense to me. I think I was maybe looking at that first part a different way when they were talking about third density is not the place from which to take off into the ethers. I think it's really easy for someone who starts working on their third ray chakra to like, well, if you've experienced infinity once, you really want to experience it again. It's just like a great high or a great acid trip. You really want to experience that all the time. And they're saying that's not really what you came here to do. The upper chakra stuff is like really cool, but the stuff that you really came here to do was to work on the lower energy levels, the orange and the yellow and green and such. So yeah, with everything else, I think there's lots of different ways to look at anything equally valid. Did you have any thoughts on anything here, Ashley?
I like that Quo mentioned that we take our 360-degree self into that light. I think for some, this could be an understanding that there's no part of you that is not valuable and that you should try to cut off or suppress or hide from even your own self, because all of you is going to come into account when you make that step across the threshold into higher light. So it's important for us to look at the wounds, to look at the trauma, to look at how we react when we're triggered, how we react when we're hurt, and never try to pull that self away. We are a whole being, so that includes all sides, and it's all coming with us. So it's all valuable, flaws and all.
Yeah, I think it is what has so often been referred to as shadow work. Taking a look at those parts deep within yourself that you really don't like and want to suppress and not express. But as you're saying, I believe, and as Quo has said, in order to graduate from third density to fourth density, it's not about getting rid of your shadow self. It's about integrating your shadow self and loving your shadow self and making it part of yourself in order to be whole. And I think it's not just the shadow self within, it's the shadow selves outside, also those entities who you see to be of the opposite polarity that are really hard to accept and really hard to love. But yeah, it is, in fact, about loving them and integrating them as a whole because we need them too in order to be complete. I
Mhm.
think that's what I keep telling myself. Josh, did you have any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, and in that line, of also then next step of serving them and saying, what can I do for you? How can I help? Let me get that for you. Please have this, and whatever service of the moment that you can do, because how your enemy, how do you, if someone you hate, or I guess hate's a strong word, but someone you don't like or whatever, think in this context of what Quo is saying here is, ultimately you want to be helping them, you want to be serving them. And to get it to the point where that's your instantaneous thought, first time like you see anyone or anything, is how can I help? How can I serve others first?
Although, if it's a negative entity and they're trying to enslave you in whatever way that might be, you're not saying you would go along with that and let yourself be enslaved? Or would you?
Well, I wouldn't help them by promulgating service to self. I would help them by sending them love and, you know, yeah, not like, come, let's, rob the bank. Help me rob the bank. I guess that's not what I'm saying for sure. But um, I guess just highlighting that last line of boiling it down to, you're judged by yourself whether or not you're going to the next density by how automatic it is for you to think of others first is.
Yeah, not disagreeing with that. I think I just wanted to push back a little bit because as you were
For sure.
speaking, it was kind of reminding me of what Quo described as the thought battles or the thought wars between positive and negative entities. And the negative entities want to enslave you. So if you want to do an act of service to them, then you could let them enslave you, but that's probably not, it would be a service to them, but it's probably not the service that you could sit with. So they do suggest basically what you said, which is send them love and light and politely decline their offer to be enslaved and bid them well.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Ashley, anything to add?
Um, I like the part where it says, so basically calling to mind that we experience these temptations every day, and that there will be, it's a part of the process to have many temptations and tests. I've heard it asked a few times throughout my life, when is it going to end? Like, do you ever get to a point where you're always happy and nothing can ever get you down? You're not moved by anything. That doesn't happen. That's not why we're here. We're here to be moved in all of the ways. And even if you do experience bliss, connection with the all, and all of these lovely states, we will still daily have these temptations and tests to refine and refine. So it doesn't stop no matter how far you go up the ladder. And that's a good thing because that's how you get up the ladder.
For sure. Yeah, and apparently continues well into fourth and fifth and sixth density as well. But I think, as they said, making that kind of progress in those upper densities can take thousands, millions of years. And that's why so many wanderers choose to incarnate now during harvest time, because it's such an intense time of intense catalyst and polarization. You can do so much more, accelerate your spiritual evolution so much more in this environment, which I
So
think, yeah, go ahead, Josh.
no, just thought came to mind on that concept you're saying is, um the people, if someone says, when does it end, and you're just in this blissful state, and you say, no, it's always coming. Well, I believe I recall reading somewhere they said, like, in the work of the adept, yes, you're experiencing catalyst, but it isn't as jarring. It's like you have your path of your lesson, your plan, your upward spiraling light. And if you go sideways, you're going to get this hard catalyst, right? Like a bowling, and you have the bumpers up, and you throw it like on a 45-degree angle. So it's like ping ponging down the bowling alley. But an adept who's dancing with the, the flow of the catalyst and processing, and an adept who is working in consciousness and so on, that instead of throwing a bowling ball at 45 degrees and ping ponging 10 times, maybe they're only 5 degrees off, and they'll still get catalyst, but maybe it won't be as jarring, as extreme, be a bit
Sure.
more gentle. So that is possible, but yes, it's still going to happen. It's just how intense is it going to be, and it's ultimately
Right.
based on your reaction, your own.
Right. And I think that's what Ra was talking about when they said the wanderer will not have a variant experience. You're still going to experience things that most would interpret as negative and suffering. It's just that, as I think you're saying, if you're polarized positive enough, you're just able to see it as a blessing and to be thankful for even the negative appearing catalyst. And yeah, I think that's what would make an adept an adept. For viewers who are not familiar with that term, adept really kind of refers to, you could say, an advanced student, someone who's working at an advanced level with the law of one and with work and consciousness and doing what could be considered magical work. And they said magic is being able to change your consciousness at will. So being able to change the way you respond to a triggering event, that's magical, is what they're saying. Ashley, do you have anything to add before we take a look at another passage?
Oh, no, I'm in resonance with everything you guys are saying.
Figured you would be. Always such a joy and privilege to have you on, Ashley and Josh.
Yeah, so happy to be here with you guys.
Let's take then a look at a couple of passages about work in consciousness and the process known as graduation or harvest. Graduation or harvest refers to making that quantum leap from one density to the next. Could be any density, but in Earth's case, it's about graduating from third density to fourth density. And this was from 1984, 11/11/84. Latwii, another Confederation entity, 1/3 of Quo, said it is a correct observation that as your planet nears that called the harvest, the experiences of many shall be intensified. For as time for harvest grows short, the work in order to achieve harvest must be accomplished in a shorter time. When time is short, then intensity must replace the time that is no longer available. Great work in consciousness can be done in the short time that remains before the harvest of souls from your planet. There is, of course, the risk that the work shall be more difficult, yet there is the great opportunity to move forward in the process of evolution as has never been possible before upon this planet. And on January 27th, 1985, the entity known as Latwii also said, indeed, as what you call time grows shorter and the harvest grows near, the opportunities for covering a certain distance must be intensified in order to do more work in consciousness. Were there more time, as you call it, the lessons might be attempted in a less intensive manner. Yet these entities, as each upon your planet, are greatly desirous of completing this illusion and learning indeed how to love, and have therefore determined that the remaining period of time might best be utilized in this intensive manner. It's so funny that these passages came out in 1984 and 1985, because to me, those times seem so much less intense than what we're going through right now. It's just hilarious to me, but it is certainly appropriate, and it certainly would explain why so many people feel like, wow, there are just intense things happening, things that have never happened before in history. Once in a lifetime things seem to be happening every few weeks or months or so, because, as they're saying, as that harvest time, as that graduation time draws near, you got less time to do what you came here to do. And that means things are going to be more intense as a result. Ashley, any thoughts on either of these passages?
I was excited as I listened to you read this passage because you're right. We're in the thick of it now. Like, we're experiencing this intensity point. And for me, that shows that, harvest time is approaching. That era of us stepping into the fourth density is approaching. And however that manifests in totality in the end, I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to fourth density Gaia and connecting with you all in ways that we haven't connected in probably thousands of years and many incarnations. So this is just like another hope stimulant for me as to what is the purpose of all this intensity, that this means we're actually moving forward, not backward, which can be thought when you look at today's events.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, I love that last line in the second paragraph. It said, the part in blue, great opportunity to move forward in the process of evolution as has never been possible before upon this planet. Because we've had graduations and harvest cycles before, but those were minor cycles. Those only happen at the first 25,000 years, 50,000 years. This is not just the end of a minor cycle. This is the end of the master cycle. This is like the last chance that this planet has. And it's a really amazing privilege to be able to be incarnated at this time, to be able to do this kind of thing, to help with that, both ourselves and the planet, since they're the same, apparently.
Yeah.
Josh, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with both of you for sure. And yeah, it's what an honor and a blessing, right? To be here, to be alive. Like Ross said, we've waited in line, right? For forever.
Fought tooth and nail for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like you were commenting about the cycles, and or I recall Ross said something about at a previous cycle ending, the first cycle ending, they asked what was a life. Don asked what was a lifespan, and they said 900 to optimally 1,000 year life, and then it dropped and dropped significantly for the beginning of our current cycle, and that
darn law of responsibility.
Yeah, and how if you live 900 years, you have a good amount to just go through a biological life of, maturing and so on. But then you have so much time for working consciousness or spiritual growth or discipline of the personality. So it makes sense. Something that was designed to take 1,000 years, that's now happening in 180, 70 years. It's
I
really
totally forgot about that part. Yeah. That's
It's
a
like
fascinating part of the story, too.
it's like if you never studied for the class final all year long, and now you're cramming for
Yeah.
finals. You're about to graduate high school and it's senior year and you're cramming. It's going to be intense. And then harvest, graduation, and now you're on summer break, relaxing.
Yeah.
Density, much less
Yeah.
catalyst in fourth density.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just the end of a master cycle on any random third density planet. It's the end of the third density master cycle on planet Earth, which they have said many, many times. It's a really unusual planet, specifically because the vast majority of population of souls incarnated came from other planets that apparently blew themselves up or were rendered uninhabitable, like Mars, Maldek, Sirius, Deneb, Atlantis, by these endless cycles of bellicosity and war. So again, it's all that much more intense on this planet compared to most any others. Do you have any other thing to add, Ashley or Josh, before we wrap things up? I think that was the last passage to look at, these two.
I would just say, just calls to mind how special Earth is again. Everyone is excited for us to finally do it, to finally get things right. And seems like we did it. Earth is already in fourth density positive activation. So we did do it. We're just kind of moving through the collectively getting to that point where we can transition.
Right. Yeah, they said the Earth is kind of like on a giant galactic clock face, and as the hands move, for some reason, planet Earth and maybe our whole solar system just seems to be moving through some part of space-time and time-space where the density of light is changing from third density to fourth density. And Yeah, they have said several times the planet itself is already vibrating fully in fourth density. It's just humanity that's kind of lagging behind and clinging to third density thought patterns and mindsets and such. So, yeah, a joy to be able to help, maybe help humanity, help those who are ready to be awakened to awaken to new possibilities. Josh, did you have anything else to add before we wrap things up?
Nope, that's all.
Sounds good. So, where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons that we might want to remember? Well, I could offer 5 things that you might want to remember if you can after this. For one, work in consciousness is basically work in your indigo ray center, also known as your third eye chakra. And that remember that unlocking your lower energy centers, balancing them is key to allow the full flow of energy up through your energy systems. And that working in the indigo ray is very much like experiencing infinity. That's kind of what the indigo ray third eye chakra is about. And as mentioned, as graduation nears, the intensity of experiences increases, but it means you have great opportunities for work in consciousness that were not possible before this. It's a really beautiful, positive way of looking at all the otherwise crazy looking shit that seems to be going on these days. And yeah, indeed, as you change your consciousness, you change the consciousness of the planet. What a beautiful thing. Ashley, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to share with viewers, or any final thoughts on this topic?
I would say I would offer.
Oh, Ashley, I believe your sound went out. If you are talking, we are not hearing it.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Try again.
Okay. I'd like to offer that don't underestimate the power of consistency. Whatever ways that we can do for work and consciousness, no matter how small, do that thing to the best of your ability consistently, and you'll see great changes, and it will lead you to that experience of infinity. Consistency is key.
What a beautiful takeaway. Thank you. Josh, any takeaways or final thoughts?
Yeah, I really like what you said there, Ashley, and would, second that and say, at least in my experience, I think it could be helpful for assuming you've chosen the positive path and you're desirous of growth and evolution, to somewhere, somehow write down that intention or your choice as maybe a morning, incorporated in a morning ritual or something, prayer, that when you inevitably get thrown off your path, or distracted or tempted, that consistency is key. And if you go back to your morning routine and you read that or say that, it will work and you will make progress. And I guess that's it.
So beautiful. Thank you both for joining us. Always enjoy these conversations, and I always learn new things. So thank you so much for that. It is indeed time for one more thing, and that is our pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our time together, just to kind of end things on a fun note, and maybe look for law of one connections in pop culture. So since today's episode was about work in consciousness, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on one of the best movies about explorations in consciousness, one of the best mind bender movies in our recent time. I'm referring to, of course, the one by Christopher Nolan, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, leading a team of thieves through deeper and deeper levels of dream work in order to plant a dream in somebody else's mind, but start running into unresolved issues along the way. I'm talking about what movie, panelist?
Inception.
Inception, indeed.
Inception.
Such a great movie, such a
Yes.
great movie. And Christopher Nolan has done so many great movies already. Have both of you seen Inception at least once before?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out once.
Nice. Yeah, I've been waiting to do this pop quiz for a long time, and I really enjoyed writing it. So I'm going to ask you a few multiple choice questions about this classic piece of pop culture, see how many you can answer correctly. Those of you watching this video later, go ahead and say your answers out loud. We can hear you through time space. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something new and interesting about this classic piece of pop culture and the law of one, you won as well. It is worth noting there was a passage from Quo that seems to relate nicely to Inception. This was from March 6, 2010. Quo said, "The work to which we refer has sometimes been called work in consciousness. It is among the most effective workings which you can undertake in the incarnate state, for it is an opportunity to integrate energies within the self that have not been fully brought together. We would, however, issue a caution, and that is that there are very often arises on the part of the seeker a tendency to make judgments about the self and to use these judgments as part of the process of seeking deeper levels of the consciousness. This can be the source of a rather serious distortion, for if the deeper portions of the mind feel adjudged, their tendency is to withdraw, recoil, and shut down, and the possibility of effective healing and integration is thereby cut off." Seems a really good description of what was happening in the movie, where Leonardo DiCaprio is going deeper and deeper into these different levels of different people's dreams. But his ex-wife or his wife keeps showing up and threatening to sabotage the mission because he has unresolved guilt issues over his role and her death. Just thought I would throw that in there. Are you guys ready for your first question? Let's explore.
Yes.
Your first question. Who did Christopher Nolan originally have in mind for the role of Dominic Cobb? Was it A, Matthew McConaughey, B, Christian Bale, C, Guy Pearce, or D, Leonardo DiCaprio?
I'm gonna go with D.
Nice. Josh?
I'll get random guess B.
Nice. Yeah. Correct answer is indeed D. Matthew McConaughey, of course, starred in Christopher Nolan's great movie Interstellar. Christian Bale played the role of Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy that Christopher Nolan also directed. Guy Pearce starred in Memento, a really other fascinating movie that Christopher Nolan directed. But no, apparently Christopher Nolan had Leonardo DiCaprio in mind from the very beginning. He just admired the way that he stuck to the script and really tried to deep into the minds of the character to be that character. And according to him, everyone else was cast according to how well or not he thought they would be able to work with Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie. So, key figure.
Wow.
Are you ready for your second question?
Yes.
Yeah.
The famous hallway scene was filmed A, on a rotating set, B, on green screen, or C, at the Sunset Hotel in Los Angeles?
A.
Tricky. I want to go with C.
Nice. Josh?
I'll guess A, but I'm not familiar with the Sunset Hotel, so
Nice. But you know the scene they're talking about?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the hotel is part of Arthur's dream, the character played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And so at some point, he's fighting this guy in a hotel hallway. But they're actually asleep in the back of a van that's being driven by some other guy, and that van is being chased. So it's crazy. They're veering all over the place in the van, and at some point, the van rolls down an embankment. So that means in the dream, the whole hallway, the whole hotel is rolling over and over too. It's a fascinating, well-produced scene. And apparently it was done on a rotating set. They did construct a physical set and they arranged it so that it would be rotating, and all the characters were suspended on wires to get that zero gravity effect.
That's
Just
cool.
amazing piece of work. I know, it's great.
And I think other movies have tried to replicate a scene like that where everything starts rotating, and I think they got it from Inception.
I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised. Would have been so easy to do it on green screen, but yeah, he likes doing it old school. Are you ready for your last question?
Yep.
The ending scene. Was the ending scene real or was it a dream?
Come on.
For those who haven't seen the movie, the top is the way that the Leonardo DiCaprio character can tell whether he's in a dream or not. If he's in a dream, then the top never stops spinning. But if he's in reality, then the top eventually falls down. And this is a famous ending scene where it was a little bit ambiguous, shall we say.
This haunts me to this day. Like, I've seen the movie, I think 3 times total. And this, trying to find and follow the storyline so closely so I can detect where the lines start to blur in his mind. And I don't know. I think it was a dream because, well, I don't want to spoil it. Okay.
Let's hear from Josh first, and then we can come back to you. What do you think, Josh? Dream or real?
I think it was a dream. I think, again, it was a while ago, but I remember the top, like you said, was ambiguous, but I had a feeling that it was a dream. And can't we say this is all a dream in the
Could
eye of
indeed.
the creator?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think, Ashley? You had a reason? You had a insight?
Because of the wife, you know, she moved on, she transitioned, so she can't be there with the children, like she's
Oh,
already.
so you think the children were a dream too and didn't exist?
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. As it turns out, based on my research, and I did a fair bit of research on this, the correct answer is A, probably real. When Christopher Nolan was asked about it, he did say that he deliberately left it ambiguous. The camera goes to black just as the spin seems to be wobbling a little bit like it's going to fall. And he did want to leave it ambiguous. He did want the viewers to decide for themselves. But Michael Caine, who played his father in the movie, pointed out later on that Christopher Nolan apparently told him, Michael Caine, that the scenes he's in are real. And if he's not in the scene, it's a dream. And Michael Caine is in that scene at the end. Also, apparently, the wedding ring was deliberately used as a tip. Apparently, in his dreams, he is wearing his wedding ring. And in reality, he's not wearing his wedding ring. And in that last final scene, he's not wearing a wedding ring. So it does appear. I think they've also noted that the kids in the last scene actually look more grown up and are actually wearing different clothing than all the other times that they appeared to him in the movie. So who knows? You know, it's a probability possibility thing. And you just have to watch it again, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, but that's
Definitely.
okay. Good. I'm glad it was real.
Yeah.
I felt bad for him. Like, I wanted him to have a happy ending.
For sure. Yeah, I think they also pointed out that they even said in the dreams, you often don't know how you got to where you were. So like when he's having that cafe scene with Elliot Page and he asks them, how did you get here? And they can't remember how they got there. But in this case, remember very well the airplane flight that brought him home and the trip through customs and everything. So yeah, I think there's a few pieces of evidence. So viewers, if you didn't learn anything else here, you learned about the ending of Inception movie. Panelists, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for everything you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And to you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We're sending you our love light and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panel.
Bye. Love to you.
Bye. Thank you.